Okay, so we thought we'd just have a quick discussion about this film Cuties, and I'm sure you've heard about it or read something about it because it's trending everywhere and it's in all of the major newspapers. If you don't know what it's about, then this is the description in my words. It's a film about 4 young girls. Actually, let me change that. It's about 4 children, 4 11-year-old girls. This group of children, they get together and they decide to form a dance group, okay? And it's not your average pop star, rock star kind of a dance group. Nope. It is very provocative and highly sexualized. Very uncomfortable viewing, and I don't know the point of this film. There's very conflicting descriptions, and even the director is saying that what she was intending, it's not really what's being described. Now, I have no sympathies for the director. She's a 35-year-old Senegalese woman, and she's saying that her point was to make aware the pressures that young girls have to face when it comes to social media. Rubbish. It makes very uncomfortable viewing. I haven't seen it. I've seen a few censored clips, but even those censored clips made me feel incredibly uncomfortable. Now, one of the girls, the focus of the story is on a girl called Amy or Ami, and she's a young 11-year-old Senegalese child from a Muslim family. Although the emphasis is not on the religious aspect, it's cultural or the patriarchal aspects of her culture or family values. And it's all about her wanting to break free from them. Now, I'm going to read you, very quickly, I'm going to read you a description of how the newspapers are describing the film. So, The Guardian, and I do not like The Guardian at all. The Guardian is describing it as, let me tell you, a call to boycott Netflix on Thursday over the French film Cuties over claims that its young stars were portrayed in a sexualized way. Really what they should be saying is it portrayed prepubescent girls in a hyper-sexualized manner. It's gone on to talk about how the hypersexualization of girls and boys is disgusting. And they're trying to be a little bit balanced on this and trying to kind of not take anybody's side. A lot of parents are coming out and expressing their disgust over this. Netflix themselves have lost 9 billion. You just have to see who actually owns Netflix to understand that this platform, it's anything but entertainment. It is a platform for political propaganda. It is there to program our children, okay, under the guise of entertainment. Okay, let's see what the Sun is saying. Cut the Cuties on Netflix. Okay, how have they described it? Oh, okay. So initially, Netflix had the film synopsis as this. And this is what angered everybody. Amy, 11, becomes fascinated with a twerking dance crew. Hoping to join them, she starts to explore her femininity, defying her family's traditions. So now they've changed it to 11-year-old Amy starts to rebel against her conservative family's traditions when she becomes fascinated with a free-spirited dance crew. Now, if that doesn't anger you, I don't know what will. They've gone on to discuss why it's so controversial, mentioning that the film's been blasted for sexualizing girls. Well, isn't that the norm? It's not just girls. Furious viewers continue to mount a cancel Netflix campaign on Thursday as the controversial French film Cuties hits the streaming service. Okay, fantastic. Director Maimouna, 35, said she was stunned by the outrage and that the poster was not representative of the film. Anger and calls for it to be dropped remain. So some people are going to shy away from this, saying, look, it's got nothing to do with me, nothing to do with my kids don't go on social media, we don't go on Netflix, we don't own Netflix, we're not bothered about films, let's just not even delve into this topic. But I want you to just stop for a minute. I really want you to connect the dots. Just think, who controls all of these different agendas? What is this agenda? What is this agenda that this film is pushing in your face very blatantly? if you're going to turn around and basically state that it's a controversy, it's a conspiracy theory, then I have no words. It's blatantly obvious what agenda this film is pushing. What is it pushing? I'll give you a second. I hope you're shouting it back to me. Pedophilia. Absolutely 100%. This is how it's described. It's described as a coming of age comedy. Comedy? Really? A group of young 11-year-old children parading themselves, being portrayed in a hyper-sexualized manner, dancing provocatively, sexually, dressed with hardly anything on. That's supposed to be comedy, right? I'm not quite understanding this. I'm not quite getting it. And I'll tell you something. I remember watching a documentary about sitcom writers, and they explained how if they wanted to introduce a taboo subject to the masses and slowly start to desensitize them to it, so start to challenge the cultural or societal norms, what they would do is they would write it into the scripts of comedy. What did I remember? I don't know if you guys watched Friends. Yeah, I'm going to think back to a few of the comedies, the sitcoms that I grew up with. I remember watching Friends. So if you look back at Friends, and I remember coming home from school, watching TV, watching the news. Well, Mum used to watch the news, and then afterwards she'd go, yeah, here, all yours, and I'd be allowed to watch Friends. We didn't think nothing of it. The next day, go to school and we'd all catch up with each other. Who watched Friends? What happened? Did you see? Nothing was thought of it. The other day, it happened to come on the TV at my friend's house. I was horrified. I actually sat there and I went, how did I get away with watching this? And I sat down and I started thinking, every second line is about sex. It's got some vulgarity in it. It's all about female sexualization and women exploring their sexuality and men and women both being promiscuous. How did we get away with watching this stuff? But again, it was thought nothing of. This is how comedy, sitcom writers do this. They bring in taboo subjects and they start to desensitize and normalize it to the masses. So coming back to this film, if you guys still want to think that normalization of pedophilia is a conspiracy theory, then you know what? I would seriously make dua for the ability to discern the information that comes your way, to know it, to see it for what it is. Ya Allah, help us. Okay, so those are my thoughts so far on this film. So now what we're going to do is we're going to head over, have a listen to what myself and Hakima discussed in regards to this film, and we're going to just simply allow you to see how it's so important to be able to connect the dots with the wider agendas and the wider affairs that are currently going on and that are all around us. Things that we might not even give a second look to, and why it's so important for us to actually start to open our eyes and understand what's going on around us and why everything is linked and how everything is linked, how all the dots connect. So we shall go over to that now. So Jazakallah khair for listening and Jazakallah khair for your time. So we're just going to switch over to our discussion now. Whatever I've seen, whatever I've heard of it, it's horrific. I saw a clip of these girls on stage dressed as they were, these 11-year-old children. The way they were presenting themselves, I was absolutely shocked and horrified. So inappropriate and so uncomfortable to watch. And all of a sudden you hear people are protesting, cancelling their subscription with Netflix. And you've got all of a sudden these liberals coming out, you know, these liberal politicians coming out, or liberal celebrities even coming out going, oh, what a wonderful coming of age film. And one of the girls, she's a Muslim, so they show her kind of breaking out of the bounds of culture or narrow-minded religion or cultural values that they want to suggest. And you think, well, 11-year-old girls, when I was 11, I was playing board games. I was playing chess or football. I was actually into football back then. And you see something like that, which was in your face, absolutely an agenda to sexualize our children. And how can you not feel outraged? So I'll tell you how I would connect the dots to this. So when you look at the people who are running the world at the moment, and they've infiltrated every sector of our society, whether it's education, politics, or any other sector, you realize how this poison's been spreading and how they're trying to desensitize us to this agenda. American politics is having a huge effect on us at the moment. So if you look at this guy in California who's come out, it's all come out now, he basically got a bill passed, okay, to say that if there's a child as young as 8 even, and if an adult is caught having oral or anal sex with that child, and if that child is willing, then that adult doesn't get punished.
And yet that completely goes against everything we know about grooming. Because the grooming victim, even though they might have been groomed to accept it, and even groomed to love their abuser, at sometimes they might even think that they're a willing participant. But the whole point of laws against child abuse is the fact that under a certain age, a child isn't able to have to make the decisions, what am I trying to say?
That child is not able to discern
That's the
themselves.
one. Yes.
So a listener very rightly messaged me and said the following: a child is not able to go to the doctors and consent to a medical procedure, or my daughter cannot go and get a piercing done if she's not a certain age, right? She can't even go and get her ears pierced without mummy's consent. Yet they want to now say that a child is able to consent to sexual acts with an adult. How? See how it all ties in? See how the dots are connected? Politics, education, on every level. Law. Look here.
And then you would have obviously the police institutions' involvement in this and complicity in this. It's very, very sad.
So if you want to still call it a conspiracy theory when you've got it staring in your face, then I have nothing more to say to you. So I'd rather be on the side where I'm able to see the truth and I'm able to discern the truth. And then when you dig deeper and somebody would say, well, that's all you need to know. No, thank you. I'd like to know a little bit deeper. I'd like to know Netflix. Netflix is a household name now. Everyone's got a Netflix account.
Not me.
Not you. Well done. So everyone nowadays, the majority of people have a Netflix account. It's readily available.
Muslims and non-Muslims alike.
Yeah, everyone. And it's really inexpensive. Pennies if you really break it down to how much it costs a day to have Netflix in your home. And then you dig deeper and you see who actually owns shares for Netflix. Who owns shares in all these people who are pushing the liberal agenda? The liberal agenda is what has destroyed the moral fabric of our society.
Can I just say that it's not the liberal, the traditional liberal agenda. There's traditional liberals, and they're liberal in so much as they're pro-gay marriage, or they're pro-choice about abortion, or they're pro that general hippie idea of accepting people as they are, as they choose to be. And then you have this new liberal agenda, which is all about which is all about condemning what's traditional and breaking what's traditional, so that the traditional family is not valued anymore, and not just that, it becomes harmful and dangerous, and that children are actively taught to explore their sexuality rather than being protected from that. Not protected from their sexuality, but protected from, that their innocence is protected. Traditional liberal values are actually they're actually quite inclusive, where humanity is respected. And this here is a new liberal agenda, where it's the extreme left, what we call the extreme left. Yes, slightly two different things. Do you know what I mean, Sophia? I'm slightly liberal leaning. I know politically I'm liberal leaning. I wouldn't be able, even as a Muslim, I wouldn't be able to condemn someone that's homosexual. I wouldn't be able to do that, because having known homosexuals in the past, yes, fine, their acts go against God, but I truly believe that many people become homosexual not through their own hands. It's not their choice. And if they're Muslim, then they know that it's not correct to act upon those desires. But at the same time, if they're not Muslim, then they're committing a much bigger sin. That the one thing that we should be sympathetic to is that they're missing out on a lot more. They're missing out on a connection to their creator, and that's what we should be calling people to. We should be calling people to worshipping their Lord, not dictating how they should live their lives.
This is a conversation that I don't think is welcomed. I don't really think it's a conversation that people would be willing to engage in about homosexuality. And yet when you hear it, women who now been in the community, we've got children who go to all girls school, the conversations that these teenagers sometimes bring home, and they bring up homosexuality or bisexuality, and you see that it actually goes on a lot in even Muslim all girls schools or all boys schools. And yeah, and we do need to be able to have that support to engage in these discussions rather than being shut down. Everything around us, popular culture, is there to desensitize the next generation, to normalize it. But also, if you come at another angle, that we also know, being these alternative truthers, or whatever you want to call us, these conspiracy theorists, if you want to call us that, we also understand that how the water, how food has been altered, has been tampered with, how so many chemicals are prevalent in our food system, which messes the hormonal system of boys and girls these days. Fast food, plastics, chemicals in drinks, whatever else. We also
child sexual abuse as well. Child sexual abuse in itself is sometimes can be a bit precursor to homosexuality, and this is something I've seen myself. And I truly believe that homosexuals, rather than being condemned, they really deserve our compassion. As Muslims, we should be compassionate towards them.
And that's the reason that we need to make it easy for our children to be able to speak to us about this, because the reality is, however much we think that we know everything our children are being exposed to, we don't. Not these days, unless of course you've got them on lock and key 24 hours a day. Do we really know what kids are getting up to these days? I'm thinking to myself, well, okay, I'm going to make a stand against Netflix, get rid of my subscription, which we hardly use anyway. But my kids might go to school and it might be the topic of discussion in the playground, even amongst Muslims. They're going to talk about this film because that's what's happening everywhere you look in the media. The liberals are probably enjoying the fact that it is creating controversy, because the more controversy around a topic, the more people are going to be drawn to it. Right?
100%. Okay. And if they ban it, it will get even worse.
But the fact of the matter is, you look at something like this, and we know our stance on it Islamically. I'm coming from
the angle of whereby, rather than blocking it and pretending it doesn't exist, and your children speak about it and get exposed to it behind your back, rather than that to be able to be open and accepting, so that you're able to discuss it in your household. I believe that's a lot healthier. But also I'd like other
people to be able to openly discuss it. It's not something we need to kind of go, okay, it doesn't concern us. We don't need to dig into this topic. Now we're going too much into it. Shut it down. We can't do that. As a community, we can't do that. So when people say, what's the need for you to go too much into these topics? It's very important. So important to understand how and where these dots connect, because it affects us on levels that we wouldn't even imagine. It's all right if your kids are young right now. You might only be dealing with key stage 1 kids, or kids who are still toddlers. When my kids were that age, I didn't have to worry too much about that. It was more about the physicalities of being a parent, right? But now I've got 4 different personalities, 4 different children with different needs, different emotional needs, different perspectives, different challenges that they're facing. I've got a child who's coming home, she's 15, and she comes home and she's really struggling going back to school after this period of not being in school, and saying, Mum, these are the kind of things that we're dealing with at the moment. We're dealing with isolation, we're dealing with loneliness. We're dealing with, it's an all-girls school, and do you know how many different categories of sexuality is put on a form, and we have to be sensitive to every single one of those categories? And we can't shut out these subjects. And if you don't want to listen to them, that's fine. I respect that. This is not a platform for me to call you to any form of dawah or force my way of thinking down your throat. Absolutely not. But it is a place for people who do want to discuss it to come forward and say, you know what you said made sense. And I've had people text me and say, I finally feel that there's someone who's able to help me process things and show me a perspective that I was struggling with, or I was struggling to process. And I really appreciate it, because I didn't know who to talk to. And I think generally women talk more anyway. I don't know about the men in our community. I don't know if men talk amongst themselves about these kind of things, or maybe there is still a kind of a taboo. Don't get too involved in things that don't concern us or are of benefit. That's for you to decide. If you feel it's not for you, and if you feel that you need to protect yourself, then absolutely 100%. So I cut off our discussion there because we went off on a tangent, which I will upload on a separate podcast. But I hope you did enjoy that discussion. I really hope that you did take some benefit from it. I hope some of the points resonated with you. If you have anything to add to that discussion, then by all means, you can message me. If you know me personally, you can pick up the phone and give me a call, or you can use the comment section down below and let us know what you're thinking. But anyhow, coming back to Netflix, for now, as it stands, cancel Netflix, make a stand against this film for the right reasons. In terms of your own children, if you've got children who are at the age who probably know about it, I mentioned it to my 15-year-old and she knew exactly what I was talking about. They've already started to discuss it in school. Open conversation with your children. It's really important for them to understand age appropriately what's going on in our world, in our society. Allow there to be room and opportunity for healthy discussion. This is how you will build a bond with your children, and it's so important, especially when we have so much working against us, so much in our society, in our world. You feel like they're being pulled away from you from every angle. Keep your kids close. Don't drag them close to you. Keep them close, but in the right way. There's a really lovely analogy. If you try to hold sand in your hand, and the tighter you hold on to it, the quicker it runs out through your fingers. You just have to come from a place of compassion, from a place of wisdom. We don't always know the answers when it comes to our children, so hold space for them. Come from a place of love and warmth and compassion and understanding. And definitely, we're all in this together. Whoever said that parenting was going to be easy, eh? Anyhow, take care of yourselves, and inshallah we'll speak soon.